The book of Daniel starts off with Daniel and his three friends being kidnapped from their homes and brought to Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar had a feast for all the kidnappees, but Daniel and his three friends, now called Rakshak and Benny, yes, these are the VeggieTale names, don't want to break God's laws. So they ask if they can have clean foods. The king was confused but granted this wish, fully thinking that Daniel and his three friends would be weaker than everyone else. But Daniel trusted in God, and when they ate the clean foods, him and his three friends were the strongest out of all of them. A couple years later, Chad has a dream, and this troubles him, so he calls everyone who could possibly help him, but they couldn't, so they called Daniel. And because Daniel trusted in God, he was able to tell Nebuchadnezzar his dream. This dream, as we all know, was about the statue, head of gold, chest of silver, and so on, representing the different empires. So now, because Chad had a big ego, he built a statue fully of gold and made everyone bow down to it, under the threat of being killed. But Daniel and three friends didn't bow down to it. They trusted in God and knew that bowing down to this pagan statue would be going against what God's laws are. They didn't bow down, and instead they stood up for what they believe in. Get it? I'm sorry, I'll leave. Ha, you thought. Anyway, they got thrown into a furnace. But God protected them because they held on to their faith. But here's the question. How did they have so much faith? Well, you gotta look at how they were raised and what happened in their lives. As we all know, Daniel and his friends grew up learning about God, and when they were kidnapped, the only person they could trust was God. And every time they put their faith in God, God pulled through. From asking from different foods to Daniel's friends being thrown into the fiery furnace, every test of faith was met with protection from God and reward for their faith. All right, let's fast forward. King in the Wild, no, that's not it. Writing on the Wall, no. King signing documents, oh wait, not too far. Let's go back just a little bit. All right, okay, starting from the beginning. Daniel and the Lion's Den, it all started when Daniel became friends with King Darius. Daniel was such good friends with King Darius that other people got jealous and tried to find reasons to kill him. Because they knew Daniel had such a good relationship with God, they knew if they could make God illegal, they could get Daniel in trouble. So their plan started.
King Darius, you know how you're like the best?
Yes?
Well, we were thinking, what if you were like the person we prayed to?
Yes, we should do that. So they did that. The king signed a decree saying that if you worship anything but him, you'll be thrown into the lion's den. But Daniel knew that God was more important. So even though it was illegal, Daniel still prayed to God. Daniel was captured and thrown into the lion's den, but Daniel wasn't scared. He knew God would protect him. Daniel, with his strong faith, shows us what God is capable of, and giving us examples of how we should keep our faith in our own lives. Daniel and his friends, anytime they encountered a problem they couldn't deal with or handle, they asked for God for help. In life-threatening events like the fiery furnace or the lion's den, these guys trusted that God would protect them. And that's how we should live our lives.